Hello YouTube, it is Qnix, and I am here with another tutorial for you. This is the tutorial for the comes out to show them effect, procedure. It's more of a procedure than a single effect. But this is one of the classic effects that I used to use quite a bit when I was over in the Vegas world, and interestingly enough, even though I have brought back my Vegas computer, I actually learned how to do this effect on Kdenlive recently, and I'd like to share that tutorial with you today. So before I get into it, I just want to share the origins of the effect. This effect is based on a musical piece by Steve Reich called Come Out to Show Them, or no, just Come Out, where the artist takes a recording of a member of the Harlem Six giving some kind of testimony on the news, and then he takes that clip and records it and then plays it back on two different tape recorders that are slightly out of sync. He records that and then plays that on the two different tape recorders that are out of sync, and kind of keeps doing it until the recording devolves into just pure noise. Now, the effect is based on that, but the implementation is quite dissimilar. I'm not slowly taking a clip and then playing it slightly out of sync and then duplicating it and playing it slightly out of sync like was done in the original. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm just taking the clip in one single time. Actually, not one single time. I guess technically it's 3 times. But I guess more to the point is I'm not using slight time stretches to cause the differences in the video. I'm just using time delays. And even though I do apply the effect 3 times, ultimately you don't really see the process of me applying the effect 3 times. It kind of looks like just one final video with a huge array of little videos inside it that are playing at all different times. And one thing I think is kind of interesting about this effect is that when I apply it to a video, sure, it devolves into pure noise, so you can't really distinguish individual features of the audios, or of the logo's audio when you apply this effect, but the noise is different for every logo. So there is a unique identity to the sounds of these logos that you can't take away even when you completely remove a lot of their individual features. So today I'm going to be assuming that you are using Kdenlive and optionally FFmpeg. I'm going to do a sort of upscaling step in FFmpeg to get our video ready, but this isn't quite necessary. What really matters is that you have Kdenlive, and if you want to use Kdenlive for the upscaling step, you can do that as well. So I'm going to get us started off. So I have a video in here that I've linked. Yes, the All Me Pictures logo. I think this is going to be the one that I use today. So let's just play the original. Okay, so that's before I do anything to it. Now, even though I'm calling this an upscaling step because I am going to be increasing the quality and the frame rate of the video, I'm not going to be increasing the resolution. In fact, I think I'm going to be decreasing it. And the reason why is because ultimately each individual video is going to end up looking very tiny. So I don't need to render this at full resolution just yet. Now, what I'm going to do is something similar to what I normally do. So I'll FFmpeg-I all me. So let's do it this way. I'll do format equals RGB 24. This is a little bit different. I'm going to crop it. I'll trim off a little bit of the sides, crop equals W equals 0.96 times IW. But I'm also going to do H equals 0.54 times IW. And this is going to crop the video to a widescreen. I'm going to see if this works well, and if it doesn't work, then I'm just going to stretch it to fill a widescreen instead. But I'm assuming at this point, most people render their videos in widescreen now, so whether you crop the video or stretch the video, it does need to fill a widescreen if you're rendering your final video in widescreen. And I'm going to correct the same error I always make. I always do that. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I have that muscle memory to put the commas where there should be colons. We will scale this video to have a width of 320 and a height of 180. And we will disable the original aspect ratio. I think at this point we can do minterpolate. FPS equals 60. MI mode equals MCI. MC mode equals AOBMC. ME mode equals Spider. VSBMC equals 1. HQD and 3D equals Luma, spatial equals 10. So let's see if I've done everything I normally do. Format it to RGB, crop it, scale it. Yeah, so that should be all set. And then the audio, I will also upscale. A resample, or with AF, I should say A resample equals 48,000. A exciter, A FFT-DN. Now, whenever I'm not rendering the final video, I like to render things in lossless format, and this is definitely not going to be the final video. We have a lot of steps to go after this. So I'm going to choose that this is going to be lossless JPEG. And I'll set the audio to be FLAC, and I'll call this upscale.mkv. I know I briefly talked about this before, but JPEG 2000 format is really growing on me. Super flexible. I like that it can be lossless and lossy. It supports a ton of pixel formats. I do recognize that JXL is more efficient, and for most purposes, it probably works better than JPEG 2000. But I do find that JXL doesn't support as many pixel formats, so I think JPEG 2000 is a little bit more versatile. They're both pretty cool formats, though. Anyway, let's play. Not FF play, that's going to send it to the wrong screen. Let's play this video. Alright, that looks good. I'm just going to make sure I didn't miss a step, because I realize I never set this. Okay, so the display aspect ratio is 16:9. Now, if you do this upscaling step, one thing that is safe to do, that you should probably do, is aspect 16:9, because some really old video file formats don't have the proper pixel aspect ratio, but in this case I lucked out. I didn't have to worry about it. So now we're going to get into the meat of this effect. That was just to sort of prep our video for the fun. So we are going to now open Kdenlive. and we are going to import the video that we just made. Now, this, I would say, is not a particularly difficult effect, but it is a tedious effect. You're going to have to apply a lot of steps repetitively, and I don't currently know a very efficient way to do it. I'm sure that there is some kind of code that I could write in FFmpeg to do this, but honestly, writing that code, that would be a whole Rosetta Stone of code there. So I'm going to show us how to do it the easier way, even though it's a little bit of a tedious. So I've got our video. I am going to insert some AV tracks. We have 2 of them already. So let's insert 7 more so that we have 9 of them. All right. I'm really sorry. I think I missed a step. Before I do anything else, I want to make sure I lower the resolution of this video. Because, again, we are not rendering this at the full resolution because ultimately this is going to end up very small. We can render it at the full resolution, but it's going to be a big waste of resources. So let's not do that. So I made a custom profile in Kdenlive where I'm setting the frame size to 640 by 360, but the frame rate is 60 FPS. So let's use that. And now we're going to take our video, now that I fixed the resolution, we're going to take our video and we'll drag it in to every single track. All right, cool. It's going to be very loud, so just for the time being, I'm going to lower this volume. This isn't a final value. This is just doing something for my convenience, so this doesn't destroy my eardrums. That's better. That's better. So, to all of these tracks, we are going to apply the transform effect. So just for ease of use, first what I'm going to do is I'll scale everything to 33.33. I'll just apply that effect before I move things around. I am going to have to move things around, but before I do that, I'm just going to apply the scaling, and I'm going to drag this effect onto every other video track. So all of these are at the same size. Now I'm going to work on arranging these videos in a grid. So let's go back to the top track. This is already open. So the order in which you arrange these doesn't matter. Ultimately, you need to have a grid of 9 videos. One here, 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 one here. However, you don't need to have, V9 be the one that's over here. You don't need to have V8 be the one that's over here, etc. So I'm going to show you just an example order that I like, but you by no means have to follow this particular order. I'm going to set V9 so that it is the bottom right. So basically, I'm going to fill these tracks in reverse, reverse reading order. So let's align this to the right and to the bottom. Now let's go to V8. Let's just align that to the bottom. Let's go to V7 and align this to the left and the bottom. V6, we're just going to align that to the right. V5, we're going to leave in the middle. And V4, we're going to align to the left. Finally, V3, we're going to align to the right, to the top. V2, we're going to align to the top. And V1, we're going to align to the left and the top. So we have our video grid. It's looking nice. We're already making good progress. Now, what comes next is applying some colors. So, strictly speaking, you don't have to do this because ultimately this is primarily an audio effect, but I do like to apply hue shifts to the tracks so that I have a nice balance of colors. If I don't do that, I'm basically just going to have all blue and orange, and I want to mix it up a little bit. So let me apply hue shift to all of these tracks. Let's see. Why don't I skip applying it to V1? I'll apply it to all the other tracks though, because V1 would be a hue shift of 0, but in that case it's just not applying the effect. So I'm dragging hue shift onto all of these tracks. Let me make sure I don't already have it on this one. Okay, I don't. There we go. There we go. And there we go. This is again not a strict order you have to follow. I will be showing you an example of how I alter the colors in the video. So V1, as I mentioned, I did not drag hue shift onto this because I'm going to leave the hue alone. V2, I want to alter the hue here in intervals of a ninth of a full circle. A ninth or a tenth? Let's see, 45, 90, 135, 180, 225, 270, 315, 360. Okay, so in an eighth. I want to change the hue in an eighth of a circle. So I'm going to set this hue to 45 degrees. Because ultimately the hue is out of 360 degrees. So I'm going to set this to be 360 times an eighth, 45. I'll set the hue of track 3 to be 90 degrees. I'm going to skip over to track 6 because I'm going to revolve around the center in a circle. In track 6, I'm going to change the hue to 135. In track 9, I'm going to change this to 180. In track 8, this will be 225. In track 7, it's going to be 270. We're going to go back to track 4, and this is going to be 315. So now we have the hue basically going in a circle around the center. Now we're going to do something a little bit different with the center. I'm going to erase hue shift on the track itself. I'm going to instead apply hue shift to the video event itself, and I'm going to animate a hue shift here. So I'm going to add oh, that didn't work. Let's change that. Let's add a keyframe, and I'm going to set the hue to 360 at the end of the video event. So what's going to happen here is that the 8 videos that are around the center are fixed in hue, but the one in the middle is actually going to change. I'm dragging through the video, and you can see that it's rotating through a variety of hues. I like to do this just to ensure that the distribution of colors around the whole video is equal. Now, sometimes I will do other things to the video in the middle to make fun patterns. Like sometimes I apply an inversion effect, and sometimes I instead apply the inversion to the 4 videos that are along the sides here, and then we get a sort of checkerboard effect. Another thing that I did for the last video I made is I just boosted the saturation. I think I changed this from 125 to like 200. So you're not bound to do anything like this, but sometimes putting an additional effect on the center can be kind of cool because, or not even just the center, putting an additional effect on really any of these videos in this grid can be kind of cool because when you apply the effect multiple times, you can have a pattern emerge. So I think what I'm going to do for this example is I'm going to do something that I did for the previous video. I'm going to boost the saturation of the middle track here. All right. So now we're going to apply time shifts to all of these 9 tracks because we don't want them playing at the exact same time. Otherwise, we don't really get any noise. So V1 I'm going to leave alone. I like to use time delays that are either prime numbers, odd numbers, or at least relatively prime odd numbers, because I'm trying to minimize the likelihood that after I apply this effect a bunch of times, 2 videos in my grid are going to play perfectly in sync. I can't really totally avoid it, but I can certainly minimize the likelihood it's going to happen. So I am going to set the delay between each of these tracks to 1 second and 1 frame. In the good old days when I was using 30 frames a second, this is what I did. I set it to 1 second plus 1 frame. I didn't want to just multiply 31 frames by 2, so I instead bumped it down a frame, so now it's 61 frames. So I dragged V2 back a second and a frame, and you can see that the audio got dragged back accordingly. So I'm going to go to 202, do the same thing. Go to 303, we'll do the same thing. 404, 505, 606, 707, and 808. I'm going to save this because when I try to play back videos in Kdenlive, it tends to crash. I'll call this stage 1. And let's play this just to see what it looks like, if I can do so without crashing the software. Okay, so this is looking good. We're almost done. We only have one more step left, and that step is to repeat this clip a bunch of times, because if I only play each clip in the track once, the effect is not going to really persist. So usually what I do is I take the video, so I'm in track 1 now. I'm going to keep copying and pasting in this track right until the length of the video is somewhere between 1.5 minutes and 2 minutes. So I repeated this until the length of the video was 1 minute and 39 seconds, which seems pretty reasonable. So let's do the same thing with the second track. This is where the tedium of this effect comes in, you see. Copying and pasting events in Kdenlive between tracks is not very fleshed out like it is in Sony Vegas. So you would think what I would want to do is just do this copying before I multiply all my tracks. But really, I do think that this is the best way to do it. Let's go back to the next one. Okay. We're almost done. We're almost done. Only 2 more to go. Okay, so let's save this and preview it again. Okay, I think you get the idea. It's working. Now, I think what I'm going to do, I'll raise this volume a little bit because it didn't go anywhere close to going over volume. I think I'll change this to -8. That being said, until we render the final video, we don't need to be too concerned with the volume. We want to make sure it doesn't go too high, but we don't really care about it going too low. And the reason why is because when we stack a bunch of videos on top of each other, the sound is going to add on top of itself. So if we have videos, like if we render this video at a good volume, but then we go back and edit it some more, we can end up going over volume and having clipping. But if the volume is low, then it's safer to edit it some more. Now, interestingly enough, this seems to be less of a problem in Kdenlive than in Sony Vegas, and I don't know why. But this video was safe to render now. So I'm going to render it as stage 1. I'll render this as some kind of lossless format. I think FFE1 or HuffYUV, either of these would work. This shouldn't take too long because it's a small video. So let's get this running, and I will resume the tutorial when it's done. Okay, we're back. So, that didn't take too long, only 3.5 minutes. So, that was stage 1. Stage 2 is... it's doing it all again. It's literally just doing it all again. There's not going to be many changes, but I will go through the process again just to show you that there are some changes. So I'm going to be starting a new project with a resolution now of 1280 by 720. So this is a little bit bigger, and a frame rate of 60 frames a second. Now, it would be really nice if I could do some kind of replacement, like a vague file replacement, in order to just do what I did in stage 1 on stage 2. But the fact that the timing between stage 1 and stage 2 is different, it makes me feel like doing that would actually be more work than just starting fresh and doing it again. If you guys have a novel way of doing it, feel free to use it. But I'm just going to rebuild things kind of like I did before. I'm going to import stage 1 now. So this is the video that I rendered in the first step. And I'm going to drag this in. I'm going to drag this in. What happened? Oh, I didn't add AV tracks. I added video tracks. Okay. Back up. Back up. Backing up. Backing up. Okay, so 7 AV tracks. There we go. Re-import stage 1. Here we go. Just to be safe, I'll save this now as stage 2. And let's drag transform onto one of these tracks here. And let's lower the volume, because that's blasting. There we go. Oh, it's still pretty loud. Let's lower it even more, just for the sake of editing. There we go. So I'm going to set the size to 33.33 again. And I'm going to drag this onto all of these tracks as I did before. Now, usually when I apply this effect, I use the same order of tracks. However, there is no restriction to do so. The order of the tracks really doesn't matter. So in fact, just to show you that you have some freedom over this, I'm going to order the tracks in reverse of what I did before. So previously my tracks were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to instead put track 9 in the top left. I'll put track 8 on top. I'll put track 7 on the top right. Track 6, that's going to go on the left. Track 5 will stay in the middle. Track 4 will go on the right. Did I say track 6 was going on the right? I think I said left. Whatever. It's where it's supposed to be. Track 3 is going to be left, bottom. Track 2, just the bottom. Track 1 is going to be on the bottom right. I'm going to add the hue effects again. This I am going to have conforming to what I had before. So So track 9 is the one in the top left. Track 5 is the one in the middle, so those don't need it. I'll add hue shift to all of the other tracks. So track 8 is now going to be 45. To reiterate, this is something I am doing because I want to. If you have any other ideas of how you would like to distribute the colors in the video, or if you don't want to distribute the colors, if you don't want to alter the hue at all, you want to do something different, that's totally fine. I'm just showing you an example of how I typically do things. So that'll be 135. This will be 270. This will be 225. And the last one will be 180. And then for the event in the middle, I'm going to just do what I did before. I'm going to add hue shift to the video event, and I will drag all the way to the end. I'll add a keyframe and have it cycle through the hues. It's going to be much slower, but it's still going to cycle through the hues, which is what I want. Okay. Now we have the tedious part where we apply the shifts. So I modified this a little bit because I was going up from 30 frames a second to 60 frames a second. So let's see what I decided to do. Previously, I set the delay to 43 seconds at 30 FPS. So in 60 frames a second, that would be 86 at 60 frames per second, that would be 86 frame delays. That's a minute and 26 seconds, but that is an even number, which I don't want. So I reduced the delay between tracks to 125, 1 second and 25 frames. So I'm going to do 125. Don't do a minute and a second like you did before. If you do that, you'll have a bunch of videos playing at the same time. And the whole point is to get these videos playing as out of sync as possible. So we're going to make sure that the delay is something different from what we had before. 125 is just an example. Just make sure it's not whatever it was before, which in this case is 1 minute and 1 second, or 1 second and 1 frame. Now it's going to be 1 second, 25 frames. 250. Here's something really cool about Kdenlive 2. This is 60 frames a second. If I enter 375, there's more than, 75 is more than 60 frames in a single second. It'll actually do the math for me. It sets it to 415. So I just need to add 1 over here and 25 over here. This will be 540. This will be 665. This will be 830. That'll be 955. And then we're gonna have 10, 50, 80. Should be 80. Yes. Now, we don't have to copy paste the video a bunch of times because it's already playing for about a minute and a half. You can see actually it's playing for more than a minute and a half. It's playing more for like 2 minutes. So I'll save this and preview it. Now we're getting somewhere. I almost forgot. For the sake of consistency, I'm going to add saturation to the middle track, and I will crank it up to 200. So this is almost ready to go. I think I'll raise the volume a tad to -12 dB. Okay, it looks good now. So I'm going to render this in a lossless format again, and I'm going to call it, I'll put it in the same directory. I'll call it stage 2. That should be good. So this will take a little bit longer to render because we have a higher resolution. It shouldn't be terribly long, but just to help it along, I'll give it a few more render threads. All right, as usual, away we go. So I'll resume the tutorial when this is done rendering. Okay, we're back. Took a little bit longer, almost 9 minutes, but still not terrible. So, I'm going to make a new project. This one we're going to render at the full resolution because this is going to be the final step. So, yeah, I'll save the changes. I'm going to import stage 2 now instead of stage 1. So this one has 81 copies of the video in it playing at once. Stage 1 had 9. So you guys know the drill. I'm going to add 7 AV tracks. Yeah. Da-da-da. And I'm going to apply transform to each of these. I'll drag this in a little bit. And I will reduce the volume so that our eardrums don't die. Oh yeah, I haven't applied transform yet. That would explain some things. I'll drag this in a fair amount. I'll set the scale to 33.33. Of course. I wonder why it did that. Let me try this. Okay. That's what I want. Let me fix the alignment a little bit. There we go. I wonder if that's why I had little vertical lines in the previous iterations. Yeah, the way I was doing it, you make it little spaces between the videos. I don't think that detracts from the effect, but maybe fixing the scaling a little bit manually will help. Okay, so let's drag these things. Da-da-doo. Da-doo. Do-do-do-do. Okay. And just to play with the order of the tracks again, I think what I'm going to do is I'll sort of alternate between the video coming in from this side and coming in from this side. So let's say that V1, this one is going to be That's going to be my top left. But V2 be bottom right. Again, you have complete freedom over the order of the tracks. This is just something that I'm trying to have fun with. So that'll be V4. V5 is going to be the right top, and V6 will be left bottom. I'll have V7 be... Why don't I have it revolve around the middle? That'll be cool. So I'll move this to the right. I'll move that to the left. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah. And then V9 will be in the middle. Ugh, got a little bit of vocal fry there, I'm sorry. Okay. Those are all arranged. Let's add some colors. It is pretty colorful as it is, but I think it's going to look even cooler when I add some colors on top of this. So V9 is the one in the middle, actually. So I'm going to apply hue shift. I'll do what I did before. I'll drag this all the way to 360, and then I'll bump up the saturation. To 200. Now let me add hue shifts to all the other tracks. That's gonna be, whoop, get back here. Get back here. And it should be 315, because it's the one over here. V7 should be 135. V6, that one is going to be 270. V5, that one's going to be 90. V4 should be 225, I believe. Three should be 45. 2 should be 180. And then V1 we're leaving alone, so the hue is still going to be 0, 45, 90, 135, 180, 225, 270, 315. And let's go back to a nice frame in the middle. So now all the colors are pretty much evenly distributed along this whole video. And finally, we're going to add the delays in the tracks. So when I was working at 30 frames a second, I usually did 53 frames of delay. I calculated that would be 106 frames if I'm working at 60 frames a second, but I don't want even numbers. So this worked out to a second and 46 frames. I reduced that to a second and 43 frames. So we're not going to use a second and a frame because we already did that. We're not going to use a second and 25 frames because we already did that. I'm going to do 1 second and 43 frames. To 86. For 69. 6. 43, 52. 7 to 95. Nine 78. Yes, 78. $11 $21.61. Yes. Yes. Not that it really matters if it's perfectly even. And then 13.44. So we've applied a fixed delay to all of these. I'll save it as stage 3. I'll preview it. Previewing it is definitely going to slow down your computer a little bit. Well, okay, we don't really need to see the whole thing. We know it's going to show up the way we want it to. This looks perfectly good. Now, because this is the final stage, assuming this is the final stage, I will talk about that a little bit later, we do actually want to make sure that the volume is at a good level. And previewing it in Kdenlive is probably going to be way too slow. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to render this, but I'm going to render it in audio only so that I can view this in Audacity and check the volume. So I'm going to render this as stage 3. Doesn't really matter the audio codec, but I'm going to do lossless. Actually, it does matter. I think it is better to use a lossless audio codec. So FLAC is going to work because this is just audio. I don't think this needs multiple threads. So the reason why I'm rendering just the audio first is because I want to check what the volume of the audio would be if I were to render the video. I know earlier on in the tutorial I said that this is primarily an audio effect. That wasn't really the right words to use because there's a very intricate video effect going on, as we can clearly see. But the primary purpose of the effect is to listen to the sound. It's to listen to how the sound changes when you apply all these transformations. And the video effect that I do is sort of a supplement to that. I don't want to leave you guys just listening to the audio and not having something cool to watch. So I am going to make sure that the volume of the audio is good. Okay, that's all rendered. And let's open it with Audacity. Yeah, incorrect file type, whatever. And let's see how much I can amplify this. Okay, so this is 7.3 decibels too quiet. So this was at -8. I can bring this up to 7.3, so I'm just going to change it to -1 to be safe. Leave a little bit of extra headroom. And because this is the last of our stages, if you so choose, we are going to add our corner logo. Hey, oh, I had these switched. Oopsie. There we go. We'll drag this to the end. Okay. So I'll save this. I'm not going to render it because that's just going to take way too long for this tutorial. We know it's going to look right when this is done. So, let me give you some concluding remarks. This tutorial, what we did is we applied 3 iterations where we multiply the video from 1 video to 9 videos 3 times over. The final result is going to have 729 copies of the video playing at once. Now, you have seen in some of my past videos that I've actually upped the ante and done this 4 times. If you wanted to do this 4 times, you could. You would just do all the same steps that you normally do, and you would, I believe you would increase, yes, you would increase the delay between tracks even further. So I think when I was working at 30 frames per second, what I would do is I would make delays of 31, 43, 53, and 59 frames. If I'm working at 60 frames a second, you saw what I already did here is 61, 85, 103 frames between tracks. So if you wanted to do this for another iteration, a delay that I would suggest using between tracks would be 2 seconds minus 1 frame. So 119 frames. That being said, you are free to experiment. You don't have to use fixed delays. You can change the delay randomly between tracks if you so choose. You can apply whatever color effects you want. You can apply no color effects. You can change the order of the tracks. There's really, because there's so much going into this effect, there's a lot of variations that I just can't cover, or that I can't cover in a reasonable time, I should say. And what I've shown you here is just one example of how you can do it. Really, the thing that matters is that you're taking the video, you're multiplying it a bunch of times, then you're taking that video and multiplying it a bunch of times, with time delays between the tracks, then you're taking that video and multiplying it a bunch of times. And when you play it, it's gonna devolve into noise, but it could be a cool noise. That's about it for me. I think I've covered everything, so I'm going to obviously render this video separately, and I'm going to make that one of my other uploads. Do feel free to ask questions in the comments, and when you give this effect a spin, do feel free to play around with it and try things beyond what I've just shown you in this tutorial. I like to see people innovate. So, thank you everybody for watching. I think that covers it. Have a good day.